Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to be playing around with some alcohol pearl inks to create a really pretty background for our scrapbook.com spring floral slimline card. So let's go ahead and get started. So for paper we're using the Alcohol Ink Yupo paper, and this is specifically designed to be used with your alcohol inks, your mixatives, and your blending solution. And this paper is a heavier weight. It's an 86-pound paper, and it does have a smooth synthetic finish to it. So to get started, I've cut a piece about 3.5 inches by 8 inches. And let me show you the colors. These are the alcohol pearl inks. So as opposed to the regular alcohol inks, these are going to have a beautiful pearl finish to them, and they're just gorgeous. I've used these in some other videos. I will link those videos down below for you so you can take a look at that. But here you'll see there's some beautiful colors. You do want to make sure you shake these really well before you use them. There's a little ball in there, so you want to make sure you mix up that ink really well. Now I'm going to grab 3 colors for my background for today, but I did want to show you that there's quite a few colors available. And I'm going to grab these 3, and these are Enchanted, Tranquil, and Alchemy. Now I've got my piece of Yupo paper, and I'm also going to grab the alcohol blending solution. Also the alcohol ink blower, and that is also by the Tim Holtz collection. So let's go ahead and open everything up. I like to get everything open. I'll just set those little lids next to each of those colors. And you do want to make sure you have a well ventilated area when you're using these. So I'm just going to put some areas of color down. I'm not being fussy, just putting some little dots of color. Just want to make sure I kind of have an even amount. We'll come in with more as we go along, and then I'm going to add that alcohol blending solution, and that's going to allow these inks to move around, to blend together, and then I'll use that blower to blow that ink around the cardstock. So this is a really easy way to do it. Now we used to use a straw back in the day. We used to just take a straw and blow through it. This is much safer and much easier to do. And you really just want to pump that little blower, and it will force some air out. So depending on whatever way is most comfortable for you to hold it, I did find that switching it from my left hand to my right hand worked the easiest for me. So use this in the way that works best for you. I'm just trying to push those inks around a little bit and blend them together. Now I'm not going for any specific pattern. I really just want to get a lot of color down because I've got all these little areas of my die. When we use the die, it will cut out butterflies and vines and flowers from the panel that we're going to be using. So we've got a lot of smaller images that are going to show through, and I just want to make sure there's a nice mix of color when you look through the die to the background paper. So again, just keep adding layers of color. You can just keep coming back in, pushing the ink around. You can reactivate it with that blending solution. So don't feel like you're committed to the way it looks right now. You can come in with some more solution and a bit more ink and just kind of push that around. So this is the fun part, just playing with this, kind of seeing what colors you're getting, how it's blending together. I do know there's some people out there that are really, really good at using these alcohol inks and creating flowers and things like that. But I'm just going for, again, a really simple background, and I just wanted to show you how easy this is. I think if you're like me, sometimes I stress over some of these products, you know, the alcohol inks. You think, well, maybe I don't know how to use them, or I'm not going to use them properly. There really is no right and wrong. As you can see here, I'm just dropping in some color and then kind of pushing it around. And this is going to give me a beautiful background. So even though in this case we're overlaying a die over top of this, you don't have to do that. You could certainly use a background like this for any kind of a card. Just add a simple sentiment And there you can see how I added a lot more of that alcohol blending solution, and you can see how it separates that ink underneath, so you get those really kind of cool spotted areas. But again, you can come in and add more ink and push that around, so don't worry about that. Just keep adding layers until you like the way this looks. And I did like the way these colors blend together. The blue and the yellow are making a really pretty lime green color, and that pink and blue are making kind of a purpley tone. So I'm getting some really nice mixes of color. So now we've got that panel all set. Let's go ahead and set that aside to dry. I did clean off my mat, and then I've got this beautiful slimline die. This is from scrapbook.com, and this is called the Spring Floral die. And I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. I'm using some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. This is just a white cardstock. And my die cutting machine isn't quite long enough, so I'm going to run it through once, slide it over a little bit, and just run that bottom section through again. Now, when I go and pop out all these little items, you're going to see that we get all these really nice pieces that die cut out. So we can definitely save those for another project. And I am going to be using one of those butterflies that cut out for the front of our card. So look at this panel. This is just absolutely gorgeous. And you can see there are all those little pieces that we've popped out. I'll go ahead and pop out the rest of those. And again, I like to save these. These are really great for little fillers, especially the little vines and the little butterflies. So now I can go ahead and set all of those little pieces aside. And here I'm just showing you all the cute little pieces you get. And now this will lay right over the top of this panel that we've created, and look how gorgeous this is. And you can flip it around, see where you like those areas of color the best. Kind of like it that first way because I get a lot of color in those butterflies. So once I've determined that, I can grab my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I'm going to place it all around on this panel. I'll just fill in all these little areas just to make sure this stays down nice and secure. Once I have that filled in, we can go ahead and glue these two panels together. And you can see it's a little bit longer than the panel that we created. That's okay. We want to cut away some excess. On my card, I wanted a little white border at the top and the bottom of the card. We're going to be creating a standard slimline card. So I'll just go ahead and cut away this excess. And I'm using my Tim Holtz titanium shears so that I get a nice even cut straight across that panel. And I'll do the same thing on the bottom. So you can see that this die has like a little bit of a frame around the edges. You can see it right there. Just kind of a little thin border frame around the edges. And I do want to cut that away from this panel altogether. First, let me just trim this down to size. I really didn't need to do this. I could have just taken it right to my paper trimmer. But let's go ahead and get rid of that excess. And now again, I want to get rid of that little frame and look at that beautiful pearlized ink that we have underneath there. Oh, it's just beautiful. So here I'm going to trim away that little thin border around the edges. So it's probably about a 1/16 of an inch, I want to say. So I'll use my Tim Holtz paper trimmer and remove that. Now for a background on this, I'm using the Fawn Mermaid cardstock. This is a really pretty kind of aqua blue color, and that's going to frame this nicely. So let's go ahead and glue this down. And that'll give me that pretty mermaid cardstock all the way around the edges, probably about 1/8 of an inch around the edges. Now before I attach this to my card, I want to create my sentiment for the card. And this is from the scrapbook.com Cards for Kindness sentiment set. And we're going to grab that big hello. This is a nice thick sentiment, so it's going to show up very nicely on our vellum. I'm using my Pink and Main anti-static powder tool. I'm just prepping it just to take any static out of that vellum paper. And the vellum paper is just a see-through paper. It's a really pretty paper. It's kind of a frosted kind of a look. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp hello. I'm using the Versamark Watermark Ink Pad, and this is an embossing ink. I'll go ahead and stamp that. I'm using my Stampendable stamp press to press that out. And now we can add some embossing powder. So I've got the Ranger Superfine Detail White Embossing Powder, and I'll add plenty of that and just tap off any excess. Now if you did get a little bit of powder that's stuck here and there, you can grab a brush and just clear that away. So I should have grabbed a smaller brush. This was a little too big to try to get into those smaller areas. So again, I'm just removing any little flecks of embossing powder there. And then I can go ahead and heat set that. And you want to make sure your heat tool is nice and hot before you go to your vellum paper, because you don't want it to curl up on you. So if it's nice and hot, you can quickly heat set that. Now I've got some Lawn Fawn 1/4 inch double-sided tape. I'm going to place a couple strips of it down on the back side, just in the middle area, so we can wrap this vellum paper around. And this is a nice strong adhesive. I'll just remove the backing from that. And then we can go ahead and add the sentiment. And here's where I did decide I wanted the sentiment to be off to the left a little bit. I'm going to be adding a butterfly off to the right hand side, so I'll just wrap this around. This paper is really easy just to wrap around, and we'll attach it to the back. And now you can see what's really nice about the vellum is you can see all of that ink coming through from underneath. So we're not covering all that pretty background. So that's one of the butterflies that we had that die cut out from our slimline panel. Now I'm grabbing another piece of vellum, and I'm going to die cut that same butterfly from this panel. Just taping it down with a little bit of Post-it tape, and I'll run that through the die cutting machine. So now what we can do is overlay that vellum butterfly over top of the white one. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue just down the center, because I want to be able to curl up the wings on the vellum butterfly just a little bit. Actually, I curled up the wings on both of them a little bit for some added dimension. And I'll just use my tweezers to place that down, making sure I line that up really well. And then we can let that dry for a minute. Once that's dry, again, we can curl up those wings. So now I've got a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock that measures 8.5 by 7 inches, and I'm going to score it at 3.5 inches. So this will give us a standard slimline card, which measures 3.5 by 8.5. Just going to press that fold out with my bone folder. And now that panel, again, will leave a little white border at the top and the bottom. So let's go ahead and glue that in place. And you do want to go over that vellum paper with the glue just to make sure this attaches really well. And I'm using the glue here so that if I need to slide this around a little bit, I have a little time to move that around. So now let's go ahead and add the butterflies. They should be dry now, so I'm going to curl up those wings. Just using my fingers, just kind of curling that forward. And that's going to give a lot of dimension to the front of the card. Now I'll just put some glue right down the center. Now let's add a little embellishment to this. I'm going to grab one of these pretty little hearts. These are brand new. These are from Dress My Craft. And it's this really pretty light blue heart. There are different sizes in the package. I'm going to grab one of those larger ones and I'm just going to put it right in the center of the butterfly. I didn't want to add a lot of color to my sentiment area because I've got that beautiful background and I don't want to take away from that at all. So I just thought one of these little hearts would just be so pretty, just for a little tiny pop of color. Just using my Marvy jewel picker to push that down into place. And now let's take a closer look at our finished card. And again, that pearlized background. If you haven't used these alcohol pearl inks yet, pull them out. I'm sure you have them. And play around with some backgrounds. You'll just be amazed at what you get. It's just fun. Just relax and have fun. Don't stress. It's pretty easy to use. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.